Every day, the Maryland State Bar Association works to protect and make the future of our profession strong. We take an active role in shaping legislation and advocating on your behalf with state entities. Through our direct advocacy efforts and those of our partner, the Access to Justice Commission, we effect substantive change and defend your rights. We educate legislators on the needs of the profession and of Marylanders, track bills, engage our sections, and mobilize members through action campaigns. Last year, the MSBA and A2JC convened in Annapolis for our first ever annual Lobby Day. Members met directly with legislators to discuss important issues for our profession and heard from legislative and judicial officers about important policy initiatives. You help shape the future of our profession through your engagement and show Annapolis the strength of the profession. We successfully defeated a proposed sales tax on legal services, a bill that would have economically devastated all attorneys, from solo practitioners to large firms, from the public sector to the corporate world. With the support of our members and collaboration with other associations, our efforts in Annapolis helped to quickly defeat the proposed tax, allowing practitioners and firms to continue to serve clients and the public effectively. We were recognized nationally by the American Society of Association Executives from over 10,000 associations for our efforts. As the pandemic impacted nearly every practice sector in our profession and the ways in which we work, we collaborated with our sections and A2JC to achieve critical changes to Maryland law. We obtained emergency orders from the governor's office to permit remote notarization and remote witnessing of wills and trusts, and to restrict certain evictions and foreclosures. We obtained interpretive guidance to clarify existing orders from the governor and communicated this to our members. We've provided ongoing support to all legal professionals as state, administrative, and federal courts encounter COVID-19 challenges. We've liaised with judicial officers as orders are developed and discussed questions and shared comments on behalf of our members. We have shared critically important time-sensitive updates and guidance with our members directly from the courts. MSBA continues to support and partner with A2JC as we believe that access to justice is a fundamental human right, not a privilege, and that we have a duty as legal practitioners to ensure this justice. This year, the Commission formed a COVID-19 task force with the Maryland Attorney General's office that brought together high-level and diverse leaders to confront challenges as a result of the pandemic and provide recommendations. The task force focuses on civil legal issues, including housing, public benefits, consumer fraud and debt, and equity and fairness. A2JC secured an incredible $11.7 million in civil legal aid funding through its efforts. As we look ahead, we'll stay focused on our advocacy efforts in Annapolis through direct lobbying, working with our sections, and engaging members in issue campaigns that impact the profession. We'll continue to fight for every Marylander's access to justice, and we'll continue to fight for you.
Good morning. I'm Meg McGee, and I'm the co-chair of the MSBA Laws Committee. I'd like to thank you all for being here today with us and joining us for the MSBA Access to Justice Commission Lobby Day for 2021. I'll give you a little of my personal background. I am a lawyer. I am presently a counsel with the law firm of Towson Law in Towson, Maryland. I am a business litigator. I've been in practice for approximately 3 years. I served on the Laws Committee since approximately 2008, and I have served as either vice chair or co-chair over the last several years. This year, 2021, I'm honored to serve as co-chair along with David Kahn, who is a practitioner at the law firm of Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston. With me today is Richard Montgomery, who is the Director of Legislative Relations for the Maryland State Bar Association. Richard, would you please introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background and what you do?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Richard Montgomery, MSBA Legislative Director. I came aboard on the late part of 2003 as MSBA Legislative Director and have served in this capacity since that time. I serve as liaison staff liaison for the Committee on Laws, popularly known as the Laws Committee, where I basically refer all of the bills that are broadly associated with the practice of law and the administration of justice to the Laws Committee for review during the legislative session, which also sometimes happens if there are special sessions of the General Assembly. Basically, all of our work must be conducted in adherence with the MSBA State Legislative Program, which is a document it's a guiding principle document that was developed in the late 80s and refined in the mid 90s, I would say, that governs all of the activity of the MSBA. Principally, it's divided into three sections, which is core issues, middle range issues, and controversial issues. A core issue would be something so fundamental to the practice of law. You saw that last year with the bill that would have taxed legal services. The MSBA opposed that bill, and the bill was fortunately killed. A controversial issue might be a tort reform issue, such as comparative negligence. So those are the types of issues that we take up that are governed by the program. And ultimately, it's the Board of Governors that makes a decision as to whether the Bar Association will take a position on a particular bill.
Thank you, Richard. I think it might be helpful, Richard, if you would be kind enough to explain how it is that you select bills for consideration.
Generally speaking, they're broad bills that deal with matters such as contested judicial elections, things that affect the entire practice of law or broadly affect the administration of justice or the practice of law, full funding of the judiciary, things of that nature automatically go to the Laws Committee and ultimately to the Board of Governors. Anything controversial like comparative negligence or something like that would also go to the Board of Governors. But often we rely upon the expertise of the MSBA sections, particularly with arcane matters that deal with some sort of legal process that has a lot of moving parts.
Well, at this time, if it's all right, what I'd like to do is sort of describe generally what we do on the Laws Committee. And I think I'll start by telling you about who sits on the Laws Committee. It is a committee which is appointed by the president of the Bar Association. We are a very, very diverse group. We are made of public lawyers, including prosecutors, public defenders. Sometimes we have municipal lawyers in our amongst ourselves. We have tort lawyers from the plaintiff's bar, the defense bar. We have business lawyers. We have real estate lawyers. We really cover sort of the gambit of the practice of law. It is a committee where people to serve for, a year, 2 or longer. The institutional experience has actually become a valuable part of our committee. What we do when Richard assigns a bill to us, usually it comes to us on a Friday afternoon. We meet on Monday during the legislative session, every week during session. So Richard will assign us bills, the agenda will come in. He's briefly spoken to you about track bill. We'll print off track bill. And then come our Monday night meeting, we will get together, and now, of course, in COVID world, we are doing that via Zoom. Typically, we would meet in Annapolis on a normal year. In any event, meetings usually take between 2.5, sometimes 3 hours, depending on how heavy the agenda is. And what we do is we take each bill item by item and run through the agenda. Richard will report at the beginning of each discussion how a section may have handled the bill. When Richard makes a determination that a bill will be considered by the Laws Committee, he will send that bill to sections within the MSBA that have particular expertise in the area. There are many bills which will impact a number of different sections, and in those instances, Richard sends them to all sections that have an opinion or particular expertise on an issue. The section then will report back to Richard. At the beginning of our discussions, Richard will report to the committee on a position that a particular section may have taken or a concern that section might have with specific reference to the bill we are discussing. It is also important to note to you that the members of the Laws Committee serve for the greater good, and members are not there to advocate for their own individual practice areas. And it's something that we are careful to make sure the members understand when they come on board and start participating on the Laws Committee. Richard already told you that in making our considerations, we adhere to the state legislative program, and I won't spend any more time talking about that. So we have, as soon as the bill is open for discussion, we have sometimes a lively debate, sometimes very little debate at all, because sometimes it's clear what position that the MSBA will be taking on a bill because it's clearly set forth in our legislative program. But there are a number of bills that we consider that may not be as clear. And so those are the discussions that sometimes take a long time. There are instances where a bill might be particularly interesting or particularly concerned where we will form a subcommittee for further consideration and recommendations back to the Laws Committee as a whole. At the end of our discussions, we take a vote to decide what position we will recommend to the Board of Governors that they take on pending legislation. The vote that we've taken in the Laws Committee is a confidential vote, and it is non-binding. The Board of Governors is free to act either accepting or rejecting our proposals, and sometimes the Board of Governors has back to us and asked for further clarification on a particular bill. I will say, having served on Board of Governors and the Executive Committee in the past, there is deference given to the Laws Committee because of the recognition of the diversity of its membership and because of the knowledge that various sections, in addition to the Laws Committee itself, have contributed to the discussion before the Laws Committee has made a recommendation. After we've taken the vote, Richard writes up a report which is then submitted to the Board of Governors and a vote taken at the next Board of Governors meeting. Richard, do you want to fill in some of the gaps with reference to that?
Thank you, Meg. Once the Board of Governors has ratified a position of the Laws Committee, if it's a position of support, we notify the sponsor that we're going to be supporting the bill. We align allies, other stakeholders who are interested in the bill, start to prepare testimony and prepare for bill hearing as well as lobbying the bill. If it's a position of opposition, then the first thing we do is notify the sponsor out of courtesy that we're going to be opposing the bill. Again, working with other stakeholders who are similarly aligned to the MSBA, we prepare testimony in conjunction with those stakeholders, oppose the bill at hearing, and then continue to work the bill through the committee. It's the support with amendment position that's possibly the hardest, because then you're really sort of rolling up your sleeves and trying to get into the detail of statutory drafting. So those are the most challenging. They're also probably the most rewarding when you've helped to make a bill that had potential, when you've made it better, and then ultimately the bill passes. So those are some of the things that happen after the Laws Committee has made a recommendation to the Board of Governors and after the board has acted.
Richard, can you also describe for everyone, sometimes a section might offer testimony, but the MSBA is not involved. How does that come out?
You mentioned earlier what happens sometimes when a bill is referred to multiple sections. There was a bill a number of years ago, the Uniform Power of Attorney Act, which involved probably 4 or 5 different sections. Generally, it's something that I'll put before the Laws Committee for their information, but let them know that it's a bill that has a lot of moving parts and it has a lot of process. It may have forms that actually go into the statute itself. And we will keep the board and the Laws Committee apprised of what's going on with that. But the sections are free to work amongst themselves on legislation like that. To answer another question that I think you're going to ask me is, are sections allowed to take opposing positions on a piece of legislation? The answer to that is actually yes, they may, as long as it doesn't conflict with a position of the Board of Governors as outlined in the state legislative program. And if you are curious enough to look on the advocacy page, along with our Legislative Action Center and the bill practice area pages, there is the MSBA state legislative program that outlines all of the positions of the MSBA on basic issues.
Richard, you mentioned the MSBA website on advocacy, the link to that. Can you tell people if they want to get involved, what is the most effective thing that they can do and how they go about doing it?
Well, if they consider themselves a complete political or legislative novice, the best thing to do is follow it in the paper. The Baltimore Sun, Washington Post, the Daily Record, the Baltimore Business Journal all have good, pretty accurate and up-to-date and pretty accessible, understandable information. Watching State Circle on Maryland Public Television is another good place to look. Getting involved with your section council or just following closely your section newsletters. All of our legislatively active sections have newsletters where they outline their legislative activity. Also, you might want to get involved with your local or specialty bar if that's an option.
Thank you, Richard. I have nothing else to add at this juncture, and I'd like to thank everybody for attending, and I hope you enjoy Lobby Day.
This is Reena Shah, Executive Director of the Maryland Access to Justice Commission. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Maryland Access to Justice Commission does and the types of advocacy and the types of programs that it runs. So we all know and we've heard that in the wake of COVID-19, access to justice became more important than ever. And again, I want to thank MSBA members because membership in the MSBA enables the Maryland Access to Justice Commission to do the meaningful work that we do to help Marylanders who cannot afford a lawyer to get the legal information, advice, or representation they need to resolve their civil legal problems. We have made great strides in elevating the access to justice challenges and the solutions faced by Marylanders through the following. So first, 2 years ago, now it's 2018, we adopted a strategic vision report. And we spent about a year making sure we got all the stakeholders together and really thought about what our organization, the Access to Justice Commission, and how we were different than all the many other great organizations working on access to justice in Maryland. We are an umbrella organization. We bring together people from many parts of the legal profession and now have even started adding people who are not legal professionals to our commission to have the broadest reach. We exist because we believe in civil justice for all. And we do high level and high impact work. Where our strategic vision report highlighted were three key areas that we specifically should work on. One is communications. We need to elevate the issues of civil justice. And we will be working on, there were two key areas that we identified in that report that we should be working to raise awareness about. One is civil legal aid funding and increasing the streams and the amount. And two is civil right to counsel. So those are our core issues. And the other thing within communications is that we really want to start and develop an infrastructure in Maryland to help all of the organizations that work in the civil legal aid space get out the stories, get out the messages, have uniform messaging. So there's a national organization called Voices for Civil Justice, and we are going to be modeling a statewide version of Voices and being the information hub for the civil legal aid community in Maryland. The second is relationships. We were tasked with making sure that we have high-level relationships to elevate the work that we do so that more people know about it. The criminal justice system, most people would know some of the issues related to it just by watching TV because there are so many shows about law and order and criminal justice. The same does not exist for civil justice. So we really need to leverage relationships to have the highest impact. The third part of our strategic plan was organization building. making sure that we have enough capacity. Currently, we have one full-time staff person, making sure we have the enough capacity to actually make a significant impact. One of our core programs for a few years, since about 2017, has been Law on the Front Lines. We have been training public librarians in legal reference. When COVID hit, we were able to switch to fully remote, and we offered over 7 trainings, statewide trainings, to public librarians so that they could help people navigate the civil justice system. If people came to them for help, we wanted to make sure they knew where they could send people to. So this is a program that we have in partnership with the Maryland State Law Library. And we have been able to train pretty much, hundreds of public librarians. And we'll be having a report coming out later this year that tabulates the impact that we have had. We know that public librarians are not the only non-legal workers who could benefit from such a training. And in fact, from the work of the task force, we will be working with other organizations and people who do referrals, including 211, so that people can be trained in legal reference and know where to send people. So there's a lot of opportunity here to make sure people get quality legal information, because that in itself is a part of access to justice. Next, when COVID hit, one of the key things we realized is that there is not a centralized information hub. Things were changing so quickly. Orders were flying. Civil legal aid organizations had to switch to remote operations. Many of the orders had to be translated into plain language so that the public could understand. If you had to represent yourself, you certainly weren't able to read different administrative and executive orders and understand what you needed to do. And you needed to understand what legal resources were still available to you in this remote setting. Pretty quickly, the Access to Justice Commission set up a COVID-19 resource center to bring all of this information together in one place. And then, of course, as I have talked about earlier today, we entered into a high-level partnership with the Maryland Attorney General's office to create the Maryland Attorney General's COVID-19 Access to Justice Task Force. This was not only a high-level partnership, but it was a high-impact, it was a high-impact entity and body that was able to garner a lot of interest and support, and then also come out with substantive recommendations. So we worked for 6 months, and the Access to Justice Commission was fully dedicated to this effort, co-leading this effort with the Attorney General's office, and really elevate the issues of civil justice. We know there's a housing crisis and eviction crisis looming. We saw in the news how many people were waiting, to get unemployment benefits but couldn't, and how many people were going hungry. And we know that all of those things are directly related to the civil justice system. And so this task force worked on many different substantive areas to really think about the substantive issues. How do we ensure Marylanders are housed and fed and have healthcare and are safe and secure? But also, let's look at the structural issues within the civil justice system, within the delivery system, especially in relation to the funding and other infrastructure issues. So that is what the task force worked on. And I talked about before in the welcome about the kinds of, we had 59 recommendations coming out of the task force. It's a lot of work to do to implement those recommendations. And the commission will be taking over a lot of the committees that was started on the task force and make them commission committees. And the work will continue in the commission. And I just talked about the task force final report. You can find this final report on both the Maryland Attorney General's website and also the Maryland Access to Justice Commission's website. In fact, the printed report is not the only report that we will have. The Access to Justice Commission will be working to have a multimedia online report that will have far more detail and will have interactivity and videos and other things to really flesh out the amount of work that was done during this task force and really bring out the stories and tell those stories. And so that is to come. We will be having an online multimedia version of this report live. One of the other things that the Commission has been working on is what is called a Maryland Civil Justice for All story map. Now, I'm very excited about this because I had seen it done nationally. Other states had done this in the wake of natural disasters. So states that have been hit, for example, by hurricanes. And the civil justice ramification of a natural disaster, they were able to capture in what's called a story map, which is essentially a multimedia presentation and tool. It combines text, pictures, graphics, statistics, personal accounts, data, and also has interactive maps to tell compelling stories. And so this is a story about the civil justice system and what is it made up of? What kind of cases? Who is impacted by it? And really, how did COVID affect it? And we are very excited to release this tool soon. And so I'm going to walk through a bit of it with you right now. So I am very excited to introduce you all to the Civil Justice for All story map. This is a new tool that the Access to Justice Commission is going to be rolling out, and it can be used by elected officials, by media, by advocates, by community leaders, and the general public. Anyone who cares about justice can look at this, get information, get data, and understand things about the civil justice system. The coolest part about this story map is that it has interactive features and data sets embedded in it, where you will be able to search statewide statistics and then also things specific to your county. So this tells the story of the civil justice system and starts with, just that civil justice is something that we all hold dear. And it's so broad and it affects so many ways, so many places in our lives, right? So, in the federal courts, it's about immigration and bankruptcy. In the state courts, it's about evictions and consumer debt and abuse and neglect issues. In administrative processes, we're thinking about Medicaid and food stamps and unemployment. And, in state court cases, makes up 85% of the caseload if you don't include traffic. And so it's just a huge part, but a lot of people don't understand it, what it's about. So, this is an interesting slide where you can get more information on the people who are most impacted, the vulnerable populations in Maryland. And, we'll just highlight that there are many people who are working and still cannot afford basic necessities. And we want to make it very clear how, if you care about people not going hungry, and what does that have to do with the civil justice system? And we want to make those connections very clear and outright, because sometimes those get lost. And now this is the interactive map that I was talking about. We have a few in here. This one goes into how people interact with the civil justice system. So there are many different types of cases, and what you will be able to do is find Maryland statewide statistics here, including case numbers on how many evictions there were in calendar year 2019, how many failure to pay rent filings there were, foreclosures, protective orders, small claims, etc. And when you move over here, you will be able to, for example, say, okay, I want to look at evictions, but I want to look at this specific county. I want to look at my county, Washington County. And then you will be able to get county-specific, state-specific data, for these different types of civil legal aid cases. And so that is a very cool functionality and cool feature. We've never been able to have data like this about the civil justice system in one place. So this is really exciting, and we're hoping that it's very useful to legislators and advocates to search data by county and by state. Another thing is that we know that there are certain vulnerable populations that are more impacted by the civil justice system. So seniors, non-white individuals, veterans, people with disabilities, or persons who don't speak English at home. And we want to make sure that we were able to search those populations too to do targeted outreach. And so here, for example, you will be able to see, okay, well, senior populations, and then search by county, what the different numbers and statistics are. And of course, here we provide all of the statewide numbers as well. Now, there are many pre pandemic barriers to achieving civil justice, and we highlight those here. And we also emphasize that civil justice, COVID-19 is not only a health and economic crisis, it is a civil justice crisis. But if you're interested in looking at the health statistics, what is the intersection? What is the connection? Where were there the most cases? Where were there, confirmed deaths? Medicaid eligibility. You are able, again, to search these statistics by county over here and then find the statewide statistics here. And then we go into every different way in which COVID would have had an impact on the civil justice system. Another thing that we do here is start showing trends, because we know that the civil justice impacts of COVID are going to be long. And we want to start showing trends over time. So these are failure to pay rent filings, 2019 compared to 2020. And if you hover over here, you will see specific numbers related to the county here. You can select, whichever county you want here, and then you will see how trends change according to county. And so this, again, as a functionality, you can see statewide numbers, you can see numbers by county, and you can compare numbers by month, in 2020, 2019, and you can also see trends across. And we have failure to pay rent, small claims, Medicaid, peace order statistics, and then we also have statewide statistics where we couldn't find county-specific data available. And then there are, of course, new barriers that the pandemic brought on the civil justice system, including technology barriers. And we really dig into the digital divide and how it is a barrier to the civil justice system. And so this map clearly shows that there's going to be a lot of people who will have difficulty engaging in remote hearings and engaging in a meaningful way. There are many proven and cost-effective solutions to this crisis. And that's why we're here to act and to advocate. Increasing funding for civil legal aid, establishing a right to counsel in evictions, making sure people have pathways to information about the civil legal system, and then also including it in our emergency planning and our government agencies. We know that legal representation matters, and that it's a key to a successful outcome in a civil legal matter. And that we also know that there are so many people, real people, whose lives are changed when they receive civil legal aid. And here's Lisa's story. You can read about that. And so this is, we're so proud of this tool. We're so proud of the fact that the Access to Justice Commission, with the support of the MSBA, was able to put this tool together. Listen, data in this space, the civil justice space, has just not been available. And so we are bringing it together. We're telling a compelling story because what we want to do in the end is ensure that when people interact with the civil justice system, that justice is fair, it is accessible, and it is equitable. And these tools that we are developing will actually help with that end. So I thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you for your advocacy.